Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we'll be previewing the Women's World Cup semi-final between England and South Africa, as well as how the tournament has been so far and how England's progress has been in this campaign. So I'm joined today by Charlotte. She's a content creator on social media, also known as Is That Middle, and is also an aspiring player, journalist, and commentator. Her links are in the description below. Be sure to follow her afterwards. So Charlotte, thanks for joining us. I can't believe it's a semi-final stage already. Feels like yesterday since I was doing a preview for the tournament itself. But just before we get on to England and South Africa, obviously that's on Wednesday this coming week. A repeat of England's first game of this tournament. But what have you made of the tournament as a whole?
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is really exciting. The tournament's absolutely flown by, you're right. It's been an interesting one, hasn't it? There's been some real strange results there. Like, obviously, we anticipated that Australia were going to absolutely dominate, which they have done. India perhaps haven't been as strong as we thought they might have been. England, yes, have won a lot of games, but honestly, if the weather hadn't interfered in that Pakistan game, we would have been in a lot of trouble. And the weather in Colombo has caused a lot of issues for lots of teams. And I know New Zealand have been pretty vocal about that, which is fair enough because it is disrupting the schedule. It's been a weird one, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, totally. I think some of the smaller nations have improved to an extent, but I think the top four, as it were. I mean, I think most pundits, fans would have those four teams that has happened, maybe in a different order slightly. I think I had India to come second and England to scrape fourth, but England done well to get second. So, but yeah, I think yeah, it'd be hard pressed to if you're a fan of like New Zealand or whatever to finish in the top four. I think probably maybe even beyond them. And but yeah, I think like the best, the biggest four nations have ended up qualifying for the semis. So that's not a surprise, but it was nice to see some of the smaller nations, throw in the odd surprise, not necessarily results wise, but in terms of how they played as well. Like, Australia against Pakistan were like, what, 70 for 7 until we're bailed out by Beth Mooney and Alana King with the bat. Well, Alana King's amazing with the ball, but she showed her batting prowess. And, England would, as you rightly said, would have lost against Pakistan if it weren't for the rain and, struggled against Bangladesh. So, and there was a few other times where, those nations, the lower ranked nations have held their own, but just haven't had obviously the qualities, particularly in the batting department, to really, to get those, giant killings, as it were, against the likes of Australia and England and so on. So, but yeah, it's been a good tournament. I think you're right to bring up the rain. I think, especially in Sri Lanka, obviously we know why, it's main host by India and more of a co-host, a slight co-host at Sri Lanka. We know the problems with obviously India and Pakistan politically. We understand that, but yeah, you're right. I think like New Zealand in particular have really suffered from it. Sophie Devine, obviously, her last 50 over World Cup has been very vocal, and I'll make her right though. Like if you're going to play in monsoon season, like what you kind of expect, and especially as they know how to start those games a little bit earlier, and yet the ICC and authorities haven't done anything about it. It's so frustrating.
Well, that's it. It's really difficult because obviously we understand the political situation and that makes things really difficult as well. But we're in a situation where they're day-night games, which is when the majority of the rain's happening in Sri Lanka during monsoon season. And obviously it's a bit complicated, but India didn't have to play in Colombo necessarily. Like, they weren't as complex, like the games and the scheduling was a little bit strange. But like I say, I really enjoyed the results and like the sort of way that the smaller nations were playing their games. Like Bangladesh looked really, really strong at different points. Fatima Sana in particular, Pakistan as well. There's been lots of really nice little moments from the teams that I'd say even 3 or 4 years ago were barely getting a look in. You sort of expect it to be pretty much done deal, but there's been quite a few shock moments. And yes, overall the results haven't gone their favour, but slowly the gap between the nations is like lessening, I guess. We're still quite a way away from that, and I guess some of that is to do with funding and various other things, but it is getting better, and we are seeing more competitive games in between nations that aren't your sort of top four, like you say, and it's really nice.
Yeah, no, no, completely. I think something that Nasser Hussain said. Obviously, he's an absolute legend. Nasser, obviously, great commentator on men's and women's cricket, and he rightly said, on the Sky Cricket's podcast the other day with Ian Ward. Before the I think it was before the New Zealand game, like England's New Zealand game, about it's all about the smaller nations, and I think in Ward asking him like, is there a gap there, or was it decreasing? And he was saying, yeah, he was saying about the batting, like I think in terms of the power hitting, like you look at the top four teams, it's no surprise that they are obviously because of the quality of players, but also they've got at least each team has got about three or four players at minimum that can clear the boundary quite comfortably. Whereas you look at Pakistan, maybe one, maybe Sri Lanka have got one. That drew Bangladesh. You know what I mean? It's you know, I think that's probably where that's where the real gap is. I think bowling wise, I think there's too much, especially with the spinners we've seen on show and the slower bowling. But yeah, I think it's that power hitting. I think probably needs a bit of work in it for the next sort of tournament or so. Eh?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's that, like you say, the power hitting, the sort of gameplay, and that kind of like really strategic use of knowing how to score when you're not scoring, how to deal with that kind of pressure, and as well, obviously, the fielding. But again, that comes with better coaching, better facilities, more money, and it ends up quite complicated. But I do think things are marginally getting better, and hopefully we'll start to see what we've seen with the bowling sort of translate into batting, and then the scores be a bit more competitive. And I reckon they could cause some real upsets in, I don't know, 5, 7 years' time.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, if you think of like in terms of the men's game, like 20 years ago, before the '05 Ashes, it was a real shock where in that Tri Nation NatWest series, that's how long ago it was. Before the Ashes itself, Bangladesh beat Australia in one of those games, and that was seen as like an unbelievable, like minnows that proper shock. Whereas if that happened sort of maybe 10 years on, and certainly now, but maybe even 10 years on, 2015 or whatever, that wouldn't be seen as a shock. Bangladesh men beating Australia, and I think, yeah, you're right. It's going to take more time. And the amount of games that they don't play as well, like New Zealand, like even Sophie Devine, an absolute legend. As they retired from ODIs after this tournament, she was saying herself that New Zealand don't play a lot. And it's well, how are you going to improve if you don't play enough and expose yourself? So, yeah, I think you're right. It will take time, but that's all to come. So let's talk about England's progress. I think England have achieved the minimum of getting a semi-final place. Obviously, it's the first tournament under the leadership of Nat Sciver-Brunt as captain and the legend that is Charlotte Edwards as coach. So. What have you made of England's progress? Lost just the one game against Australia. Should have lost that game against Pakistan, but the rain saved us on that occasion. Won all the other games. What have you made of our progress so far?
Honestly, it's been a bit of again, like a complicated one where it felt like the only game that England really, really turned up for was that opening game against South Africa. It felt really strong from them, both with the ball and with the bat. Obviously, it helps reducing them to whatever silly score that was, so like 79 or something ridiculous. And South Africa
69 all out.
69.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and obviously, South Africa did help with that by not contributing anything with the bat. They lost all of their main batters, which is absolutely key. And obviously, Lindsay Smith with her bowling. But other than that, I felt a little bit let down by England. Not super surprised, in all honesty, but a bit let down off the back of obviously the Ashes earlier this year, the series with India. Obviously, I know we had the promising series against the West Indies, but weighing West Indies in the same field as India and Australia are quite different things. And I think it's been an interesting approach for Charlotte Edwards to not mix up the team until the last game that we've just played. I quite respect the sort of stick with the team that's winning, fair enough. And I think it's been really strong, but it's that middle order in the batting at the moment with Capsey, Dunkley, Lamb. I don't think anybody really knows what their role is, where they're going, what they're doing. They all have a decent score in them. It's just nothing's quite clicking for them yet. And I think it's good of Charlotte Edwards to sort of stick with them and build their confidence. However, you've got the experience of Danny White-Hodge. I don't know why you wouldn't be using her a little bit more in this format, personally.
Yeah, well, I think I mean, she come into bat, didn't she, against New Zealand, Danny White-Hodge for Emma Lamb. I think that was even before the World Cup. I thought that was a bit of a strange one. I mean, not having Emma Lamb in the squad, she's fantastic, but in domestic cricket, she's an opener, and you can just tell the way she's batting. It's a I wouldn't say a different sport, but it is different though. If you're coming in and you're having to hit the, you know, you have to hit the ball from, hit boundaries from ball one. It's very, very difficult rather than just, playing yourself in opening. It's totally different. I mean, it's different if you're a proper like say in the men's game, like Will Jacks is traditionally like an opener or whatever in one day cricket, but in England at the moment because of our strength in depth in the men's batting, he's batting at number seven or whatever, but he's got the ability to hit the ball and smash it from ball one like he does as an opener. He can do it at number seven or whatever. Whereas, for Emma Lamb, it's totally different. And I do feel sorry for her, but she shouldn't. I don't think she should have been put in that situation by batting at six. I mean, Danny White Hodge is experienced, very experienced, can pretty much bat anywhere, and is a good spin player, a good player of spin. So, but she was in for New Zealand. I'm sure she'll keep her place against South Africa. So yeah, that's a bit of a concern going into the semis and well, hopefully from an England point of view, the final. But what have you made of there's obviously criticisms in the last sort of couple of tournaments and the Ashes where England's fielding was a real concern. They drop catches, but I think their fielding, their catching and ground fielding under pressure, especially that tight Indian match, I think was a real improvement. So I think that's probably been certainly one of our biggest positives of the tournament.
I'd absolutely agree. I think the fielding has come on miles. I think it's a difficult one when fielding comes under scrutiny quite a lot in women's cricket in particular. And I think, in all honesty, comparing England to Australia is just not as straightforward as it looks. We look like we're in that same top four, but we've talked about gaps. It's Australia, and then there's a big gap between sort of England, India,
Oh, of
South
course,
Africa
yeah,
that's
yeah.
there, and then there's another gap. Australia have been, 5 years ahead of women's cricket for such a long time now, and they still are. Nobody's really catching up, both in terms of their infrastructure, the amount of like contracted professional players that they've had. We're only just starting to introduce that. Really, it's hard to compare those sort of things, but like you say, the catches have been strong. We've done quite well overall in the field. I think the gameplay and the decisions have been really strong. Having Nat up there as captain has been really good, and I think having Heather Knight alongside her, but allowing Knight to sort of relax a bit more into that batting role has also really helped. It's taken a bit of pressure off. It's meant that she still has a really important role within that team, but without having that extra pressure. And obviously, we're looking sort of that leadership group with Charlie Dean being sort of unofficially asked to vice captain throughout the tournament. I think she's got a great level head, primarily a bowler, but pretty much an all-rounder really in that sort of 7-8 slot.
Well, the
Yeah,
way she's been batting, yeah, it's been really impressive,
yeah.
especially under pressure.
So I do think the gameplay and the tactics and that's all coming together quite nicely, and it feels like a proper squad, whereas some things have been a little bit disjointed in the past, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think obviously it's coming to crunch time, semi-final time, and you know, one of the other criticisms about England's performances last couple of tournaments in the say the Ashes is falling apart under pressure with the drop catches and stuff. But what's been nice though from an England point of view is when they have played under pressure, they have delivered. Look at the Bangladesh game that easily that was right prime for an upset. That was until obviously Heather Knight saved us. And Charlie Dean obviously we mentioned her batting prowess, and she was key. We're batting with Heather Knight, and that India game, I still can't believe we won that with the position India were in. But it was them who fell apart, and they've done it a couple other games as well. But we were the ones who fielded fantastically and held our nerve and took it to the end and ended up winning it. So they're good signs, but obviously now the key is to do it when the knockout, your place in the tournament's on the line.
That's it. It's one thing having absolutely destroyed South Africa at the beginning of the tournament, but we're in a very different position now. Obviously, lots of wins under the belt, but coming off the back of that, not Australia lost. Australia. What am I about?
Yeah,
There's so
Australia,
many games.
Australia,
There's
and
been
then
so
we,
many
I know,
games.
I know. So we beat Australia, but then sorry, we lost to Australia and
Yeah,
beat New Zealand. Yeah,
there we are. Sorry, there's been so many games. I've been all over.
yeah,
But I do think that we're in a very different position with this sort of semi-final place and the final place on the line. That the pressure might become an issue, especially if South Africa really bring their game with Wolvart, Cap, Brit. You know, you're in a bit of a pickle there because they are all so strong. You've got de Klerk as well. There's so much going on in that South Africa team. If they all show up, they've got real potential to cause an upset, but they can also collapse quite easily as well, which is the issue.
Yeah, that's the thing. So, well, you mentioned South Africa already. Well, let's get on to the semi-final. So, it's weird with tournaments like this. Same with football. Same with any tournament where there's a few teams and you end up playing the team that you've already played earlier in the tournament. It's just one of those quirks of sport as such. But yeah, South Africa, well, you can't really read too much into the opening game, to bowl South Africa out for 69 and then we win by 10 wickets. I mean, I'll tell you what, I'd love it to be that easy on Wednesday. Obviously, that's not going to be the case. So, what, what are your thoughts? I mean, surely we'd rather, I mean, Australia, you know, South Africa are still a good team, but surely we'd rather face them than Australia or India, the hosts. And, you mentioned a few players there, but where do South Africa they're strong in certain areas with Laura Wolfart, who's the third top scorer, Mauzan Cap. They've got the spinner as well, Maleba, I'm going to say, the left armour. She's picked up a few
Yeah,
wickets as well. So and but say England, we've got our strengths. So the top order started to catch fire now. Obviously Jones and Beaumont and Knight and Silverbrunt, excellent. It's just that sticky middle order. We'll come on to that, and then our bowling. Hopefully Eccleston's fit as well. That'll be fingers crossed she's over her shoulder injury, which she picked up against New Zealand. But what are your thoughts on the game and what players are going to be stand out for you?
I do think it's going to be like it has potential to go either way. Like many games of cricket, the pressure could mount one way and then cause another team to crumble. But I do think we're fairly evenly matched with South Africa, in all honesty. And like you say, I imagine that's probably the preferred semi-final choice out of India and Australia as well, because like you say, India fully crumbled under the pressure, which isn't like them. So you'd expect them to come back hard. Well, they did come back hard in their last game, but especially in the semi-final. But out of South Africa, obviously you've got Wolvart. She's absolutely crucial, leading from the front. She has done for so long now. And then you've got Brits. If Brits is in batting properly and like solid, you'd be worried with your spin bowlers kind of thing. You've got to think very carefully about how you're bowling to the South Africa team, especially when you've got Marizanne Cap. And then obviously you've even got Tryon coming in a bit later down the order. There's a lot to think about in South Africa, and by no means an easy team to beat when they're like on top of their game. So I do think it's going to be interesting. Like you say, it'd be good if Eccleston is fit. That would be ideal. And I do think it will be a bit crucial for Lauren Bell to have a good game as well, sort of looking at the bowling, and then looking to our more experienced batters, like you say, that top four with that bit of experience there is going to be key in setting up like a solid tone and trying to cause like a bit of upset to South Africa's rhythm, whilst also keeping a steady level before we get to that sticky middle order.
Yeah, well, I think I'm certainly more confident, than I would have been a couple of games ago with, Danny White Hodge in the middle order and, so the top order of, Jones and Beaumont are starting to get runs and, even Capsey's got a few now as well. So yeah, I think, and obviously, yeah, Charlie Dean's pretty consistent. Been like an all rounder at number 8 in this tournament. So, and also, but for South Africa as well, Nadine de Klerk as well, someone to look out for with the bat and ball as well. But yeah, I think it's a tough one to call. I think England is history favours England in this. Obviously we beat them, famously in 2017 just, but like, was it 1 wicket or 2 wickets? With Anya Shrubsole hitting the boundary with her first ball, and then in 2022 as well, down under, we beat them. But they beat us, South Africa, in the was it the 2023 T20 World Cup in South Africa. So yeah, I mean, history would favour England, but it's a semi final, and we've mentioned about England falling under pressure. Well, I mean, I hope it's not the case, but it could be a case where where sadly, old habits die hard sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's like you say, I'd be back in England that little bit more, but both teams have the potential to collapse. Both teams have
That's the
potential to
thing. Yeah, yeah. That's why it's hard to
both
call.
teams have
Yeah,
such potential to really change the game as well on a more positive note, which
yeah,
helps too. So I guess only time will tell, really. Like we say, if you've got like Marizan Kath and she's really, really settled at the crease with that's all ball, to be fair. Um, you know, things are looking a little bit more dangerous, really, for England. However, we've got our own strengths as well. You know, we've got best bowler in the world. We've got, um, you know, like I say, Lindsay Smith coming up and coming like absolute star bowler. Nats in the front can produce wickets like nobody's business out of nowhere. There's loads of opportunity, and hopefully we come out on top.
yeah. No, hopefully, yeah. I think, yeah, yeah. Well, I was going to ask you your predictions, but I think you've already given it, which is good. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go. Yeah, I think England will win. But yeah, I think it might be the total opposite of the first game, where that was just an absolute breeze. I think it might be it might be a thriller, go to the last ball or last over or something.
Yeah, I
Um,
can imagine it being a bit of a scrappy one.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, no, yeah, it could be a nervous one. But as you say, quality players on both sides. So yeah, anything can happen, especially when you got plenty of match winners in the game, and rightly so for a semi final. So we'll see how we go. But yeah, I think England will. I think we'll win, and we'll get to the final. So we'll see how that goes. Thanks Charlotte for your time. Appreciate you coming on, and yeah, enjoy the semi final. We'll catch you soon.
Thanks so much for having me. This has been great.
No, no worries. Well, thanks everyone for watching. Subscribe if you're new, and let us know your thoughts on the tournament and the semis in the comments below. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon. Take care for now.